Hi guys, Darren here. Welcome to the Group D workshop in very cold Ireland. This is my 240SX drift car behind me, my ultimate drift car. This is episode 1 of my new vlog series, or our new vlog series. We're going to touch on obviously the ultimate drift car build that we have going on, as well as a lot of customer projects. My own Audi Quattro project is going to be touched on. But first of all, we're going to stick to the PS13. So this is the 13 that we built about 2 seasons ago. It is a pretty cool build. The chassis is quite incredible. There's nothing left unmodified on it. If you want to see the build pictures of the chassis, you can go to the Group D website. I'll put the link in the description below, and you can see all the build pictures from a bare chassis all the way up to the way it is now. So as I said, we campaigned this car for about 2 seasons. It had a really beautiful 2J in it, but with the weight of the 2J being so heavy and the car being so light, it meant putting a lot of weight in, a lot of ballast in to get the balance back in the car because of the big cast iron 6-cylinder engine in the front of it. So now what makes it my ultimate drift car is we have a World of Outlaw sprint car V8 for it. These are just the greatest engine ever made. Full competition engine, all aluminium, extremely lightweight, and inside in the lightweight chassis we'll be able to really take advantage of this while keeping the balance of the chassis still pretty good. So yeah, episode 1 is going to go on the details of the drivetrain in this. In this vlog series, we're going to geek out a bit on specifications of parts, why we do things a certain way, fabrication, etc. It's going to be a more detailed vlog series rather than a lifestyle kind of one. So we're going to show you the ins and outs of every piece of the car, and yeah, we're going to follow the build through from installation, fabrication, all the way through to dynoing and testing and back in competition this year with this ultimate car. So we're going to switch to first person mode and give you a rundown of the drivetrain first, and yeah, I hope you like it. So let's get started. So here we have it, World of Outlaw Sprint Car 410 small block Chevy V8, 410 cubic inches, 6.8 litres. I have seen these online make 900 horsepower-ish. Now, horsepower is just a calculation based off a given dyno and a given temperature and all that crap, but it's got some power. So as I said, 6.8 litres. It has a dart block. It has all pro competition heads in it. It has Kinsler ITB injection, which you can see. Sexy ITBs. It has a daily dry sump pan and pump. It has a cool air oil separator on the back of it for the return to the dry sump tank in the rear. It's total internal scavenge, no external line, so it comes through the pan and straight into the pump, which is really nice. The oil feed goes in the front here, which is a bit unorthodox looking, but that's how it's done. The fluid damper pulley on it is pretty cool. It has loads of timing marks on it. It also has, if you can see this, it has every 90 degrees marked on it. So that would be for doing the valve lash. So the push rods up to the rockers, it's all mechanical and can be adjusted. And with these things able to rev to 9,000 RPM, you need to set the valve lash pretty regular. Probably check it after every event and make sure it's not out of whack. Yeah, so fuel rails, part of the Kinslers. You have a 4-wire crank position sensor or cam position sensor. Here I've seen the sprint cars running magneto here with big long plug leads, but we are able to run on proper fuel injection. So it has a Callie's crank. This thing is an absolute work of art if you can only see it. It's totally pocketed and drilled and lightweight and knife edged and everything you could possibly think of. So an unbelievably cool piece of kit. I'm going to run this on an electric water pump, I hope, because the factory water pump that goes on here and actually looks like it's from the 50s is horrible. So I'm going to try and run AN fittings here. It will have a motor plate that comes out and goes onto the chassis of the Silvia. So yeah, I'm going to try and keep it sexy looking. Don't like the original water pump, so I hope that doesn't cause me any problems, but you got to be sexy too, right? What else is on this? Oh, this has what's called a Giselle. You can see it written in there. Giselle belt drive for the camshaft. This is basically for crank to cam harmonics. So the belt drive produces much less vibration, etc., than a chain would. So they use this. It's fully adjustable for the cam timing, as you can see. Look at this. Even the pointer for the crank position is sexy also. This has what's called a 4/7 swap on it, which is an interesting kind of mad engine builder thing. Basically with the firing order of the V8, I think you only have maybe 3 possible firing orders on a V8. And then you get into like cross-plane cranks and stuff like that, but we won't get into that. Basically you have to fire 2 cylinders side by side at some stage in your firing order. Normally it fires them at the rear, which is the hottest part of the engine. It gets the least airflow, blah, blah, blah. So with the 4/7 swap, it swaps it so that it fires 2 cylinders at the front of the engine instead of the rear. So for that you need a custom crankshaft, because obviously it needs the lobes opposite. And yeah, it's supposed to be better for cooling management. Some people say it gives extra power. I don't know, but all the top engines have a 4/7 swap in them, and when you're getting into like a spec racing series where everyone's engine is the same, you basically go down any route you can to make an extra bit of horsepower and try everything. So it's basically like a 50-year-old engine or more, but obviously it's got like the angles of a sprint car, of a small block Chevy, sorry. It's got the port spacing of a small block Chevy, but that's it. You just throw everything away and throw as much money as possible at it and replace everything and come out with this 900 horsepower, 9,000 RPM engine. Now, this is made to run on pure alcohol, a little bit like myself sometimes, but we will be running it on Sunoco E85R. So normally it has like a 15:1 compression ratio on it, but that's reduced in this engine now to 13.5:1. So with the reduced compression ratio, we probably won't make that 900 horsepower figure, but we'll see what it makes. It'll definitely make a lot of power, but we want to keep it alive for a much longer time than the sprint car guys do. So yeah, still should make a lot of power, but reduced compression and on E85 should still be really cool. So let's move on to the next biggest part of the transmission, of the drivetrain, we'll say, is the G-Force G101A gearbox. This is the side shifter. The G101 is the side shifter box. The GSR is the top shifter, as it's known. This is the old school NASCAR kind of box before they moved the driver more centrally and went to the top shifter. This is what they used. It's real old school technology, but it's the best money, the best gearbox value for money, basically, is what I'm trying to say. These are so cheap for the abuse they can take for the power they can take, it's a no-brainer. You have to have one of these. This is running the 26 spline Tremec input shaft. I believe there's like a 29 spline as well, it's slightly bigger, but I've had zero problems with the 26 spline. It has like the 4-bolt Munchie pattern, I think it's called, which is just an old school pattern that became kind of industry standard for G-Force and loads of gearbox manufacturers. Yeah, this box has been so good to me. I've had it 3 years in the car, and I just put dog rings and faceplates in it after 3 seasons. Now that's driver dependent, but it's an amazing gearbox to take the abuse. You have to have it, and it should work really well with the wide torque band of the V8. You only need 4 gears, you don't need any more. So this is the best value for money thing you could possibly buy. Moving on, Winter's Performance 10-inch quick change, another standard pro drift car part at this stage. I just upgraded the front to, or the lower shaft, to 32 spline, 31, 32, whatever it is. That is stronger than the 10 spline that comes in them originally. With the Winters on this, with this car, we will be running the gearing pretty high or pretty low, whichever way you want to say it. It'll be running like a 4.9, 5.1, 5.3 gear, things like that. So it'll be running the gearbox in 4th gear everywhere. And if there's any tight section, then you just downshift to 3rd. So it's just a straight shift basically between 3rd and 4th. And we always run it in 4th gear. Well, I always run it in 4th gear. It's a preference of mine, but it also kind of locks up. Well, it does lock up the main shaft of the gearbox, so it goes 1-to-1, locks up the main shaft, so it's technically the strongest gear to run in also, especially when you're making some good power. So yeah, the Winter's pretty standard part now, everybody has these. And then making it all drive the wheels, we have the Drive Shaft Shop 1000 horsepower axles. These are an absolute no-brainer. Porsche 930 CVs, 108mm. These come with the stub on the outside that locating the GTR wheel bearings. These are just, I have the 3 seasons in my car, never even touched them. They're amazing piece of engineering. Drive Shaft Shop, shout out to those guys. These things are just a no-brainer, well worth the investment. Breaking a shaft and stuff like that just can't be tolerated at this stage. And moving back forward again, check out this baby. This just arrived, so it is the Quartermaster bell housing, aluminium bell housing, to bolt this to this. So small block Chevy, this is a serious piece of kit, weighs absolutely nothing. One interesting thing is it has mounts on it to mount the bell housing to the chassis, so I think I'll be using them. So basically you do that because you try to transmit all the torque from the engine to the wheels rather than losing any torque in the middle somewhere. So yeah, we'll be hopefully making use of these as well as the motor plate that's going onto the front. This is the Flywheel, believe it or not. It's called a button flywheel. That's it. It is just 8 inches across, but 8 inches is enough for anyone, so I'm told. And yeah, bolting onto this comes the triple plate 7.25-inch V-drive clutch from Quartermaster. Bolts together. Then pretty amazingly, the ring gear bolts to the clutch cover or pressure plate, and that now faces the rear, and the starter motor now comes in from the rear and drives the ring gear from the backside instead of the front, which is just amazing, really. It's a cool piece of kit. Takes this totally out of the way from the exhaust manifolds and everything. And then the final piece of that puzzle is this bad boy here. This is the Quartermaster 710 hydraulic release bearing. I only use these in everything. Last one was in the 2J in the S13 for 3 seasons, and it's still mint. The bearing is still mint. So this just goes on here with a satisfying noise. This snout you buy and you just bolt it to the front of the G-force. This slips straight on. You can shim it forward for extra washers from here, or it obviously shims with the shim pack provided. There, loads of crap in there. And that slips in behind the bearing. You just push the bearing out, it slips in. And then, what stops it spinning, I hear you say? Basically, you screw a clutch fork pivot ball in here. Must be a GM part or something. And if I can finger bang this in here a little bit, then that locates in the ball, and then your line and your bleeders out here, and basically that stops it spinning when it's under load. So genius, simple, just an amazing piece of kit. So that bolts to that, bolts to that, bolts to that, and should be totally indestructible. 800 horsepower, I hope, of awesomeness. Pretty fucking cool. So one piece I wanted to touch on is this chromoly steel slip yoke that we use on high-end builds. It's the slip yoke for the back of the gearbox. It's a 32 spline for the 32 spline output shaft, which is kind of industry standard on the American style gearboxes. It's a GM thing, I would imagine. So what you get, it's made by a company called Strange, which is a strange name for a company, but it's a Strange slip yoke. It's chromoly steel. It's quite heavy. This one actually has been shortened a little bit for the Audi project behind me. The gearbox is a little weird, so it had to be shortened a little bit, but the splines only start in here anyway, so it's no big deal. But it's chromoly steel. It's really heavy, but it's just a beautiful piece of engineering, really. It's all perfectly machined afterwards. It's a NASCAR part, I think, and it's basically unbreakable. So it's an amazing piece in comparison to what you would get. This is like a GM original one, which is actually way longer and has way more spline engaged, but it's a real rough casting job, kind of mass produced thing. Looks a little bit kind of weak here along where it's kind of cast at 90 degrees. Something obviously with an awful lot of power, a lot of RPM, a lot of torque, something you definitely don't want letting go 100%. So rather than take the chance on it, we go with these slip yokes. I've never seen one break. They're a lovely piece of gear. They're surprisingly expensive, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the drivetrain that's involved, it's just another insurance policy. So a really nice piece we use in all our high-end builds. The slip yoke runs on a cleveite bearing. If you can see, this bearing has an oil groove in it. This is a cleveite bearing that presses into the back of the gearbox, and the slip yoke runs in it. You can see how freely it runs even with no lubrication here. Some gearboxes have this, some have a needle roller bearing. I personally have had no problem with these cleveite bearings. I think some people have had problems with them wearing out prematurely and wearing out a lot of them. I can't say what's going on there without knowing the gearbox, but I have seen people have problems with them. But this is the cleveite bearing it runs in. It's just a really nice piece, surprisingly expensive piece as well, but that's what the drive shaft runs on, we'll say, all the time in the back of the dog box. Pretty cool. So before she goes in, I said now would be my chance to put on my scales and weigh it. So it comes in at 155 kg, which is about 320 pounds in yank weight. Pretty cool. Alright guys, that's it for episode 1. Went on for a bit longer than I was expecting. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe and keep up to date with when episode 2 is coming out. It'll be out as soon as we can. Waiting on some parts from the USA at the moment. Have a motor plate on back order for mounting the engine. Engine will probably mount in the front end off of the bell housing, which will be quite interesting. Also, we'll be doing the exhaust, which is going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be something I've never seen before, so I'm really excited about that. It should be pretty insane, the exhaust system. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks everyone for watching, and hopefully you tune back in for episode 2.